Hello, my name is Brian. I'm with HD Roofing and Exteriors. Thought I'd take this opportunity to go ahead and go over what it's like to go through the process of a hail claim or wind damage or any kind of damage to your property to help inform customers what to expect when going through this process. Now, I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and we've gotten quite a few storms that have come through over the last month. Tornadoes, wind damage, excessive rain, flood, hail. These are all things that are pretty devastating to a lot of families in our area. Now, there's one big mistake I want to start off right off the bat, and that is don't just open a claim right off the bat. Call a contractor that you know that's referred to you by a friend or family member, and also call a contractor that's local. Don't be afraid to ask for references or anything like that. Make sure they're insured and bonded in the local area and that they have insurance. So call a contractor first before you do anything else. I'm going to go through on this video some of the items that I would go over with customers to help them understand the process so that they can feel more comfortable and gain trust with the contractor they're working with. If your contractor isn't doing these things, you should be aware that that's probably not a good thing. Don't let them push you into a sense of urgency or that you have to get this done immediately. Make sure you're dealing with somebody that you like, and also somebody that's going to help explain the process so that you're comfortable and you know as much as they do. So, with that, I'm going to go through some of the things that I've learned over the years. I've been doing this for probably over 20 years now, and I'm going to share some of my experience with you. The first thing I wanted to go over is how do you know you have damage in the first place? As a contractor, one of the first things I do when I show up to a property is I'll look at the soft metals. That would be things like your gutters, your valley metals, turtle vents on top of your roof. But the best and simplest way to check damage is to look at your downspouts, particularly the arms that come out that are perpendicular to the sky. So, not your vertical pieces, but your pieces that are laying out flat. You want to look for little dings. You also want to make sure that you're excluding any observations from mechanical damage, things like weed eaters or lawn mowers or things like that. But you're going to basically see a little dimple. On top of your gutters also is another place you can see, and you'll see a little dings on top of the gutter, or even from the underneath pan of the gutter, you'll see some dimples underneath there. That's a good way to find out simplistically that you have probably received some hail damage. The other way is to call a contractor such as myself. By the way, my number is 402 330 9100. Call a local contractor to come out and assess the damage. They'll be able to get on the roof, which is unnerving to some customers, that they can get on the roof and kind of give you an assessment. The third and final way is just to simply open a claim. Now, on that, I know a lot of customers actually have some resistance in doing that. I often hear feedback like, well, I don't want my policy premium to go up if I do that. But the short answer is that if there is hail damage in your area, you have every right to open a claim. Your policy is not going to change, and it's usually based on not what you do as an individual, but generally speaking, as a zip code. Most policy is based on zip codes or areas or geographic areas that are going to assess the risk that they have in that particular area. And if there's hail claims and other damage in that area, your premium is going to go up whether you open a claim or not. So the best and surest way is to call an adjuster and open a claim. The second thing you want to do as a homeowner is check out your policy, see what kind of policy you have. There's basically two types of policies. One is RCV, or is also known as replacement cost value. Typically, most policies are going to be replacement cost value. What that means to you is that if your roof gets damaged, the insurance company will pay what it costs at current prices to replace your roof. The other policy, which you got to be aware of, is ACV, or actual cost value. Those policies generally are on personal property, but oftentimes I have seen customers that have ACV policies on their property. This is pretty discouraging, and a lot of people don't know that they have this kind of policy because they don't keep on top of it. But what that means is the insurance company is going to take into account what the current value is to replace, and then they'll take the depreciation off of that. For example, if your roof gets damaged and it costs $12,000 to replace with current market prices, the insurance company will take that price and take the depreciation off of that. Meaning, if it's a half of its life is over, or it's been in use for over 10 years or something like that, they'll subtract that depreciation off of that price and pay you. For example, let's say half of its life is over, then they'll pay you 50% of that, which would be $6,000. Now, when you add your deductible, that's the other thing that you want to look for is what kind of deductible do you have in your home? There has been a movement with insurance companies putting a 1% or up to 2% or more on their customers' policies. A lot of times, customers aren't aware of these deductibles because they pay attention more to what their monthly premium is. A lot of times, if your premium goes down, it's largely because your deductible has changed. So, if you can imagine with a 1 to 2% deductible, the way that equates is what's the total replacement cost on your entire house? Let's say you have a $250,000 house. That'd be $2,500 deductible. 2% would be 5,000 deductible. That's a pretty modest price. Many houses are averaging 400,000 to half a million. So that can add up very quickly on your deductibles. The other thing that you want to look at on your policy when checking out what your policy is what kind of exclusions you have. You may have exclusions for soft metals or other items. So this is very important. Again, customers often aren't aware of what their policy actually encompasses. So it's very important to check that out when you open a claim to see what you have. Now, the third step that I would take is once you've decided you have some hail damage, is to open a claim. A lot of times the adjuster will schedule a time with you when they're going to come out and look at the house. One thing that I would extremely advise customers to do is to secure a contractor prior to uh, having the adjuster come out. There's several reasons for this. The first and most important thing is a contractor is going to look after your interests. The insurance company is not. I always say that insurance companies are not in the business of giving away money. They're in the business of being in business. So they're not going to always try to give you every last nickel and dime that they can. A contractor will assess the damage prior to the adjuster coming out. So when the adjuster comes out, the contractor and the adjuster can hopefully come to an agreement right then and there on what the damages are. Once that has happened and the adjuster writes up an estimate, they will provide that to you, the customer. It's a good idea to also provide that to your contractor as well to see if it matches up to what they talked about and agreed on. At that point, the estimate is going to be the price of which the repairs will be done. It is considered insurance fraud to charge anything different than that. It's important to know. If the contractor is offering to do it at a lesser price, it would be insurance fraud to not disclose that to the insurance company. So typically, a contractor is going to charge what the insurance company is paying. The insurance company uses many different tools to assess the damage. One of the major tools they use is called Exactament. Exactament is a service that takes nationwide polls of current market pricing for shingles and all the accessories and labor that is needed to complete a repair. Those prices are generally accepted and fair and widely received and accepted by all contractors. If there are discrepancies, like I said, to have a contractor in tow before you meet with the adjuster or dealing with insurance, the contractor will actually work on your behalf if there are some discrepancies in pricings or actual market costs to get the repairs done. It's also required to negotiate those pricing prior to repairs being done. What that means is when a contractor agrees on a certain price from the insurance company to be paid by you, then that is the price. If the contractor disagrees with that, it is their responsibility to negotiate that with insurance prior to the repairs being done. The other thing to look out for is when you secure a contractor, they shouldn't be asking for big chunks of change up front. Typically, just for me, it may not be the best business practices, but typically I'll get a $500 earnest deposit when I sign a contract right off the bat. That's just to ensure that the customer is on board with having me be their contractor. Once things are settled, we know the price that is stipulated by the insurance company, then I'll commence to start the work. When I start the work, sometimes usually it is typical to get about a third down up front, and then a third as work is being completed, and then another third or the remaining balance once the work is complete. I will collect typically on trades, separate trades. So, for example, if you have a hail damage, a lot of times that can include many different aspects. Trades would be something like the roof, gutters would be a separate trade, windows would be a separate trade, and siding would be a separate trade. Do not pay big chunks of money up front. Most reputable contractors are financially solvent and they're not going to ask you for big chunks of change. So that's my suggestion to you. Now, when the work is completed, several things are going to happen. So when you're looking at your policy, another thing to look out for is to make sure your contractor is very thoroughly walking through with you all the prices and all the work and scope of work that is to be completed. As a customer, you have every right to say that I just want you to do this portion of the scope. I'll handle this portion of the scope. You are not obligated to get the work done in any way. You have every right to just keep the money that you have. Now, the downside of that is that the insurance company has the right to drop you because the repairs are not done, and they don't want to insure damaged property. It's also important to know that if you choose to do that, insurance companies have been in the habit of going through and auditing current customers to make sure that their house is in good repair. Since they're insuring you, they want to make sure that they're insuring a property that isn't already damaged. So it's very typical and more typical for insurance companies to go through an audit. In fact, when you go to open a policy, a lot of times the agent will come out and want photos of the property prior to insuring you. So know that when you're getting work done, that it is important that the work gets done. When you receive your estimate from the adjuster, you will go through that with your contractor. He should explain to you what the scope of work is, what that entails, and what that looks like. Also, the type of material that's being used, the warranties that are part of that material, and also your deductible. Now, when you're going through and getting the work done, the deductible is the customer's responsibility. As I spoke, if you have a $500 deductible, the insurance company will pay for all the repairs minus the $500, and that should come out of your pocket. Again, it is insurance fraud to misrepresent that and the costs involved. So if you have a $2,000 deductible, that is your customer responsibility. Now, some contractors will work with you on your deductible, or you have a right to not do portions of the work. Now, it is important up front to understand the exact actual cost. Now, it's also not uncommon once you have received your estimate for the contractor to go back to the insurance company to renegotiate some of the pricing. This is to make sure that they are getting paid sufficiently for the work that is being completed, that the fair market prices are being paid by insurance company in a reasonable manner to get the work done. When that's done and the contractor, if successful with negotiating with insurance, means that your price will change. Oftentimes, I had customers think that that extra money that was negotiated should be kept by them. That's just not the case. It is the price that was renegotiated for the actual cost of repairs being done. Once the work's completed, it is also the contractor's responsibility to submit an invoice to the insurance company to let them know that all the work was completed. This also signals the insurance company to release any funds that are due to them. Now, when you get your estimate, you'll notice several things. The deductible has been subtracted from the initial check that you received, and also depreciation has been subtracted from the initial check you received. The depreciation is recoverable once the work is completed, and only when the work is completed. Generally, it is the contractor's responsibility to submit an invoice to the insurance company to let them know that the work was completed, thus signaling them to release the depreciation. A contractor generally that is solvent will understand this process and will be willing to wait to get that depreciation back once the work is completed. Sometimes that can take several weeks for that depreciation check to be released to the customer. Another common thing is when a customer receives an initial check from the insurance company for the damage incurred, there might be a two-signer check on there. Oftentimes, it might be the homeowner as well as the mortgagee or holder of the note on the house. This is because the mortgagee or your loan has an invested interest in your property since they have loaned on the house. So they want to make sure that the work is getting completed, as well as the homeowner. So both parties have an interest. In this case, it is important to quickly send that off to the mortgagee to have them sign off on the check. That way you can cash the check and give that to the contractor once the work's completed. This process can also take a while, so be aware of that. The contractor should have a good working knowledge on what paperwork needs to be done as far as the mortgagee or having a cosigner on the account or on the check. In short, you should have a contractor that you can ask all these questions to. For me as a contractor, I take it I take it on my shoulders that I really want to educate my customers. As they're walking through the process, they have a good understanding of what's happening, what monies are going where, and why they're going there, and that they have a good understanding of the process so that they're comfortable. This builds trust and confidence and makes the process a lot easier. It's a big undertaking to get received damage on your property on something that's really important to most customers. And I know that's very important. If you have any other questions or any way I can help, again, my name is Brian. The name of my company is HD Roofing and Exteriors. I can be reached at 402-330-9100. Call me anytime with any questions, or if you want me to come out and do a free estimate, I'd be more than happy to do that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.